What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Ian Wendt Show. Today is another solo episode. So some of you have already seen some clips come out from Tucker Carlson's interview with Ted Cruz. I thought I haven't had a chance to watch the whole thing, so I'm basically going to do a blind reaction video to the episode itself. I have it pulled up here. I'm going to watch it. We're going to watch certain parts. I'm not going to watch the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of skip ahead to the different timestamps that I think are more relevant that I would, that I want to add my commentary to. But I know for a fact, just based off the clips that I've watched, that there's going to be all kinds of stuff that we can break down. And I think this is a really, really important topic to talk about. I think it's a really important thing to do. And so, yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a live first time reaction to the Tucker Carlson episode with Ted Cruz. So buckle up. Let's do it.
Senator, thank you very much for spending the time to have this conversation.
It's good to be with you.
So you've come out for regime change in Iran, as distinct just from taking out the nuclear sites. What does regime change look like in Iran?
Somebody else in charge.
How do you get there?
Look, that ultimately has to be a popular uprising from the people. And it's not a complicated question. Is America better off with a country that has a leader who hates us and wants to kill us, or to have a country with a leader?
Okay, no, we're pausing it right there. This is not an easy question. This is a very complicated question, okay? Because every single time they have attempted to do a regime change in the Middle East, it has ended in American deaths, American tax dollars, and more bloodshed and more dead people. Straight up. Like, this is not just an easy, oh, well, we're just going to put someone else in charge. Also, if I remember correctly, the person that would basically replace the current leader has ties to Al-Qaeda, which I thought Al-Qaeda was one of our greatest threats as well, right? But then at the same time, you go watch the Sean Ryan show, or you listen to Sarah Adams or any of these other people that have been talking about the fact that we've been giving millions of dollars to the Taliban for years. Why do we do that? I don't know. Why do we do any of the things that we do? It seems like it's a very it seems like it's very much not America first, but hey, let's just continue. But no, that is not an easy answer. It is not to just, well, we're going to have a regime change. It just means you change the person in charge. That's not as easy as that. I'm already going to be fired up, guys.
A leader who likes us and wants to be friends with us. And
Definitely the latter's better.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so that's not a complicated statement. Look, I believe you look across the world at when you have countries that have dictators that are viciously anti-America. Venezuela, Maduro hates us. Would we be better off with Maduro out of power? Absolutely. I want our enemies out of power, and I want our friends in power.
I could not agree more. The question is, how do you get there?
Of course.
And we've been trying to kill Maduro for quite some time. We have troops there, as you know.
I don't know that we've been trying to kill Maduro.
We have. Oh. And I think you know that. And
okay, I don't know that.
Okay, well, as a statement of fact, we have. So
we do have massive sanctions. We tried to pressure him out of office.
Yeah,
I'm
there's all
not,
kinds
not
of
aware
stuff.
of efforts.
I'm just saying there's a lot of pressure coming from various parts of the U.S. government on that government, and it's still there.
Yeah.
Same, the country of our ancestors, Cuba, 1959, we've been working on that. Hasn't worked. So it's I think we both agree it's hard to do.
It absolutely is hard. And look, I think you're reasonable to ask, how do we produce that? And I think there's a distinction between what your objective is and the means to get it. There are all sorts of things I would say we would be better off. We'd be better off in China without Xi there. Should we invade China and topple Xi? Of course not.
Better off with no national debt.
There are lots of things.
Totally.
But it's good to say, all right, what are our objectives?
Right.
And so with the Ayatollah in Iran, saying you're for regime change, I don't view as complicated. I mean, the guy literally leads mobs chanting death to America.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not good.
Definitely not.
So what I love about Tucker's videos is he puts them all in timestamps. So we're going to move on to is the U.S. currently acting in its own best interest? That's what we're going to move on to.
Conceiving what I'm saying, I'm speaking theoretically, but Reagan referred to it as peace through strength. And actually, I think Donald Trump's foreign policy is very much what I'm describing, a non-interventionist hawk, where he understands that, and I think this is historically true, the best way to avoid war is being strong. That weakness and isolationism, I think.
But also the best way to avoid war is getting involved in conflicts that are being perpetrated by a country that supposedly is supposed to be our ally, but continues to drag us into war after war after war after war because of their own self-interests. that also would keep us out of wars. So like maybe just stop sending money and aid to a country that isn't acting in our best interest and is creating conflict. Just maybe. Call me crazy.
Encourages war. So going back to regime change, where you started in Iran.
So just to make, I don't think I disagree with anything you've said. So we may not be that far apart, really, because you said that the single criterion for making decisions about America's foreign policy is America's national interest.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. Which is also America first. That's another way of putting that as
I think
well.
it's the definition of it.
Yeah.
The question is, are we watching that now?
So I think we are. And from what you've said publicly, I think on Iran in particular, you and I disagree. And all right, let me contrast it when Obama was president. When Obama was president, you remember he talked about wanting to have military action against Syria.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I tried to keep an open mind to it. I said, okay, let me listen to the commander-in-chief, describe to me how this is in America's interest and what your plan is. And Bashar Assad was a bad guy. He was killing his own citizens, and he had chemical weapons that were very dangerous. I could conceive of a commander-in-chief laying out a plan for, okay, we're going to go in and say, grab the chemical weapons and leave. Like, I could see that if there was a real threat to America and there was a plan to prevent that, I could see supporting that. So I wanted to hear what he had to say. And I listened both in classified briefings and public questioning. And number one, their public defense of it was incoherent. So John Kerry said, we're going to engage in an unbelievably small strike. I think that's a quote. I'm like, okay, and to do what? At the time, there were 9 major rebel Islamic...
I think it's so interesting. These people always use these interesting buzzwords, like an unbelievably small strike. Who comes up with that? I want to know who's in the back writing this down saying, say this and it won't trigger them as much. Like, gosh.
Islamic groups in Syria. I'm like, okay, I agree. Bashar Assad's a bad guy. You topple him. And one of the 9 other groups takes over. 7 of them were affiliated with radical Islamic terrorism. You had Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra. I'm like, wait, how is it better to have lunatics who hate us in charge? Assad's a bad guy, but I don't want worse guys in charge. Obama administration couldn't give an answer to that. And ultimately, when you press them, John Kerry in particular, I pressed, and he would say, well, we need to defend international norms. Like, what the hell's an international norm? I don't know what it is, but I'm not interested in putting U.S. servicemen and women in harm's way to defend one.
Amen.
So I opposed the Syria attack and opposed it vocally. And it was interesting. Rand and I agreed. Rand's a friend of mine. But we agreed with that position for different reasons. What I was asking is I think the question we should ask, how does this make America safer? The Obama administration couldn't give me an answer, so I opposed it. I think Iran is very different.
Let me ask what you think of how Syria wound up, because Bashar al-Assad now lives in Moscow.
Yeah.
He was taken out by our allies, and he's been replaced by a radical Islamist who was affiliated with ISIS. So is that a win or no?
Unclear. No. Look, Syria's a mess, so
Give me a break. It's not unclear. It's a big fat no. Putting somebody in power like that has not been in America's best interest. It's 100% a massive L that we took, along with every other time this has happened in the freaking Middle East. Well, it's unclear.
So I've consistently opposed.
But we had a secular leader in a religious and ethnically diverse country. Now we have a religious extremist, Islamic religious extremist, who's overseen the purge of Christians and Alawites. Is that better? That doesn't seem like a win.
One of the things you said is he was taken out by our allies. I don't think that's right. Israel didn't take Assad out. What happened, and I'll tell you.
What about Turkey?
Turkey didn't take him out. So it was interesting. I had a long...
How did Assad get kicked out? Yeah.
When Netanyahu was in D.C. a couple of months ago, he and I sat down for a couple of hours. He's a good friend of mine.
I'm sure you did, and I'm sure he is.
About Syria, he made an interesting point that I've not heard anywhere else, in that he said he believes what toppled Assad was when Israel took out Nasrallah. Nasrallah was the head of Hezbollah, and they took him out. And he made an interesting point. He said it's fascinating how a charismatic leader, and Bibi said, look, Nasrallah was a very effective terrorist leader. And when they took him out, that power base was supporting Assad. And that ultimately, in Bibi's analysis, removed the support from Assad and toppled him. But they weren't trying to take out Assad. My view now, I don't.
Get out of here. That was the goal. Every single time these regime changes have happened, every single time the U.S. has aided Israel in doing this, and I know people are going to say, well, there's no proof that no, that is what happened. You can literally trace it back and look at, like, we would be here forever if I went into all the details of how this is the fact, but every single time this has happened, somewhere, somehow, Israel has been connected, and the whole purpose has been to completely destabilize the area, destabilize the region, because if these countries are completely destabilized, it makes it that much easier to be conquered and controlled and freaking steamrolled. Give me a break, man. Like this is what drives me so nuts. And I know that Tucker knows, and he's probably going to bring it up, but guys like Ted Cruz know that that's what happened. And they know that the point of these regime changes have been directed by one country specifically, Israel, and the reason why is because they need to destabilize all of the regions around them so that they can create the greater Israel state. And by the way, this isn't a secret. This is 100% what they have said over and over and over and over and over.
Don't know.
So you don't think that, and I don't, it is very confusing, and I don't know that anyone really knows all the details, but you don't think that Israel or Turkey, our NATO ally Turkey, played any role in toppling Assad?
I don't know. I don't know.
Tucker's being nice. He knows exactly.
My understanding of that, they clearly took out Nasrallah and Hezbollah. They've decimated Hezbollah, but Hezbollah is waging war on them. So decimating Hezbollah was very good for Israel and very good for America too. I mean,
really? Was it? Was it?
I would put Assad in the category of an unintended consequence, and whether it's good or bad, I don't know. I think time will tell.
For the United States.
Yeah, for the United States. I think time will tell the new leadership there. You're right to be concerned. Let me step back and let's talk regime change generally. I mentioned Syria. I also opposed the Iraq War. I think the Iraq War was a serious mistake. And we have a pattern, and going back to this binary of the interventionist and the isolationist. The interventionists advocate over and over again, there's a bad guy, there's a dictator who's doing bad things to his people, and they say, let's go topple him. And you have dictators in the Middle East who are killing radical Islamic terrorists. We come in and topple them. The radical Islamic terrorists take over, and they start killing Americans. In my view, how the heck does that help us? Like,
it doesn't.
Saddam Hussein was a horrible human being. He murdered and tortured people. Unequivocally bad guy. But it got much worse after we toppled him. And you ended up having ISIS rise up. I mean, that was the cause of ISIS, was toppling Saddam Hussein. Same thing in Libya. You had Gaddafi, another horrible guy, that under Obama, we toppled him. And you ended up having radical Islamic warlords taking over. And so...
hear really anything. I'm not quite sure what happened in Syria, but I don't know, so, right? But other than that, I don't hear anything I disagree with at all.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're in a complete agreement. I wonder, though, is there a successful regime change that the United States supported that you're aware of in the last 100 years?
Nope.
Sure. Defeating the Soviet Union and the Soviet Union collapsing, winning the Cold War. That was the most consequential step for U.S. national security interests of our lifetimes.
Okay.
And
so you would classify that as a regime change that we affected?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Look, you and I are in my office. We're sitting next to a painting of Reagan in front of the Brandenburg Gate. And up top are the words, tear down this wall, in German, in the style of the graffiti.
Right.
And I think those are the most important words any leader has said in modern times. And if you look at how Reagan waged the Cold War, and Reagan is very much my model for how to, I actually think how Reagan took on the Soviet Union is exactly how we should take on China. Now,
so I'm going to stop you here, and because they're about to go into another topic, and I just want to go back to the whole point of this like timestamp was, it says, was the Iraq War a mistake? And the answer is yes. And this is going to, I'm sure this is going to come up again, but the whole premise of the Iraq War was that we were told by Netanyahu multiple times that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and we had to go in and we had to take them out. And They were an existential threat to the United States, and if we didn't go in there, something terrible was going to happen, and blah blah blah. And then, wouldn't you know it, 9/11 happens, right? And of course, I'm going to get the people that are going to say, "Well, you're just saying conspiracy theories." First of all, the planes did not take down the buildings. I don't care what you say. Like, this has been proven through so many different sources that it was controlled demolition. A building does not fall directly down into its own footprint if a plane hits it from the side, okay? And by the way, I'm from upstate New York. I experienced 9/11 in a way that most people never have. And it's not just, oh, I know this person that said this. Like, I know people that were in the towers. I know people that were there in New York City when it happened. And I will tell you this right now, it was a controlled demolition. It was a false flag event. And then you consider Building 7, where all the files were that just mysteriously it came down as well. And it was the one, it needed to happen in order to justify and rile up the American public to go to war in Iraq. And what did that bring us? Nothing. It brought us nothing but, again, American lives, like more American lives slaughtered, more American tax dollars, and I think somewhere it said over 1 million people dead throughout that war. Like, it was not good for us in any way, shape, or form. And the fact that anybody would even question that is wild to me. So no, the answer is no. The Iraq war was not good for the United States. It did not benefit us. And we're still dealing with the repercussions that came from it. And now we are sleepwalking into another situation just like it, where this same guy is now telling us that, which, by the way, he's been saying this for 30 years, that Iran now has the ability to build nuclear weapons, and we have to take them out. We have to support them. We have to do this. We have to do that. We don't have to do anything. What we need to do is look through this smokescreen and see through the bullcrap and just say, maybe this is the same playbook they've been running for so long. And my question is and will always be, why is no one doing that? Why isn't Trump doing that? Why isn't the administration doing that when it seems like it's just so easy? And look, I know I'm not an expert, but like, so many people have blown the whistle on this, and so many people are connecting those dots, and it's like, why? Right? Who else has told us? It's literally been on a trust me, bro, basis that we now believe that Iran has the ability to build nuclear weapons. They didn't have it 30 years ago or throughout the last 30 years. They've been so close, so close, so close. And now it's different, right? Now, all of a sudden, I think 2 days ago, they said that they found nuclear facilities that just popped up out of nowhere. And all of a sudden now they're there. And it's like, come on. How do we not see through this? Right? Why do we not see through this? But I just wanted to address that because the fact is the Iraq war was not beneficial for America. None of these wars are, and they're not our wars.
Now, starting from the point, look, Reagan was not an interventionist. In 8 years, the biggest country Reagan ever invaded was Grenada. He was very reluctant to use U.S. military force.
He didn't respond after the 83 barracks bombing.
Look, there's no doubt there are really dangerous forces in our society. Some of it is politics and some of it is culture. And one of the mistakes people make in politics is thinking everything is politics. So the political answer, which I happen to believe, is we went much further down the road of liberalism. You look at Bill Clinton, who inherited the peace dividend of the Cold War being over and moved us more to the left, and then Obama accelerated it a lot. And so there are lots of bad economic policies, but I also think they're cultural things. You know, the loss of faith,
I agree with
the loss
all
of
that.
family.
I know what you're going to say, and I agree 100%. I bet there's not one word that I would disagree with. All I'm saying is, like, I think it's important to step back and ask.
But I actually think Russia has very little to do with it. So,
well, that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make, which is, like, we're all sort of focused on beating our adversaries abroad, but what is victory worth if our own country becomes what it is now?
I'm just going to say this, too, as he goes into this. This might be completely off topic, but it's just going through my mind, and my ADHD brain's not going to let me go past anything else unless I say it. So I believe that the U.S., the world powers, the powers that be, whatever you want to believe, the elites, whatever you want to believe that is, the New World Order, whatever it is. Because I do believe there's a small group of people that are pulling the strings. And that small group of people whether it's the banks or whatever, like they're so good at creating the perfect villain, right? They're so good at creating that boogeyman that we never really understand and we never really have a good look at. And we always are going off of like the media or secondhand, accounts or whatever. Throughout history, just look at all of the quote unquote villains throughout history and look at like how they are perceived and by what means, whether it's the news, whether it's the media, whether it's the opinion of politicians or the opinion of influencers or the opinion of celebrities or whatever. Throughout history, there's always these perfect villains. And I truly believe this, that those villains are created and propped up in a negative way to us as civilians, whether it's Americans or even just people all around the world, in order to hide and distract us from who the true villains really are. And the true villains are far worse than these people that they put as that they create boogeymen out of. They're the people who truly have no respect for human life. They're the people that will inject human beings with a experimental drug and not care about any of the repercussions that come from it. And quite frankly, know what they are and still go forward with it because it makes them a lot of money. And I believe that's also why I believe that the banks are very, very much behind this. And we know the banks are controlled by, but I have to make that point because he's talking about Putin here. And it's like, I know that Putin's not a great guy. I know he's a bad guy in a lot of ways. He's done a lot of terrible things, right? But like, is he the worst? Because for how long during the whole Ukraine, Russia conflict for the last 2 or 3 years or whatever, we were basically told that he was the absolute worst, that he was the boogeyman, that we had to send billions and billions of dollars over to Ukraine because of that, right? And it's like, is he the worst? Or are there worse? And in this same situation, we're being told that the boogeyman is now Iran, right? And is Iran the worst? I don't know. I would argue that maybe there's people and countries and nations that are probably worse than that based on their actions and their words, not based on what I hear, and especially not based on what I hear from the people who are their direct enemies, right? And who are looking to conquer them. So call it what you want, but I believe that these people are so good at creating those perfect villains throughout all of history, not just recent history, all history. Do with that what you will, consider who those people are, and then, maybe consider that we don't always have the full story. The saying goes, history is told by the victors.
Now, and maybe we're spending a little too much time focused abroad and not enough time focused on the people sleeping outside Union Station.
So look, I absolutely think we need to focus at home emphatically, and we need to focus on prosperity. We need to focus on reducing the debt, reducing spending, empowering people, low taxes, small businesses. American free enterprise. It's the most powerful force for fighting poverty the world has ever seen. I'm 1,000% there. I also recognize it is a dangerous world.
If you're 1,000% there, then why aren't we doing it? Like, those are words. Those are not actions. All these people do is talk. So if you're there, why not be there?
And part of the responsibility of leaders, part of President Trump's responsibility, is to keep America safe. Let's go back to where we started with
Iran. Can I ask,
Iran.
You've been in the district a long time in D.C., so have I. And the city's way more dangerous, and Congress runs this city.
No, it's a complete crap hole.
So I'm saying, no Iranian's ever going to kill me, but I could get carjacked here. And I just don't understand how the Congress could run this city and focus on the dangers of Iran when the city is like garbage. Okay. It's garbage.
But Congress doesn't run the city. We could.
Congress does run the city. It's in the Constitution.
It's in the Constitution, but they've given home rule, so it's a Democrat mayor.
Take it back. You control the Congress.
I'd vote for it, but it is a question of math.
Okay, but I'm just saying, why? How can people ignore? It's like, if my own kids are drug addicts, but I'm focused on my neighbor's kids, it's like I'm neglecting my own kids. And there's a sense in which the Congress is neglecting the country that elected them in favor of this relentless focus on other people's problems. That's the way it feels as an American.
Look, there are lots of problems in America that we need to fix. Why is D.C. a pit? because you have a mayor and a Democrat city council.
Get out of here, man. I know that Democrat policies definitely affect the way that cities end up. I understand fully that Democrat policies are a big reason why these cities have so many issues. The cities that are run by Democrat mayors, et cetera, right? I understand that. But that is not the only reason, okay? The main reason is exactly what Tucker's saying. It's our focus. It's the fact that all of these people who claim to be America first are absolutely not America first, okay? Because America first means we fix our own broken arms before we bend down and try to pick somebody up off the ground. And the fact is we are trying to pick up the world, especially the Middle East. We're trying to lift up another nation with two broken arms. And that's not how it works. And by the broken arms, I mean what he's talking about. The poverty here, the cities that are overrun with crime now, all of the issues that exist in America and make our lives more difficult, and all of the things that make that make it hard in America are not being focused on or fixed at the level that these other things are being focused on and worked on, like Israel and like their freaking military conquests in the Middle East or aiding any of these other countries. We send billions of taxpayer dollars overseas when they should absolutely be spent on us. We pay taxes, and those, first of all, taxation is freaking theft, but without going there, the least you can do is spend our tax dollars to make our lives better. I thought that's what it was supposed to be about. I thought that's how it was supposed to work, right? Am I crazy? I don't think so. But of course, it's always going to be spun. Well, it's because the Democrats. No, it's not. It's not. It's because you, along with the Democrats, continue to spend money where you have your best interests. Politicians they're no longer working in the interests of the citizens, which that's the whole point of the government. But that's not what is happening. It is not about the people anymore. It is about lining the pocketbooks of these politicians. And by the way, this dude right here I read somewhere that since he started getting money from the Israel lobby, it's $1.5 million. Not to mention his $170,000 salary that he gets. Okay? So miss me with the whole, well, we would, and I would vote for it, but miss me.
So that won't let police officers arrest bad guys. And in every city you see across the country, whether it's New York, whether it's Chicago, whether it's LA, whether it's San Francisco, if you have Democrats, we see the LA riots where they won't let people be arrested. All right.
Then why not work in regime change here?
What do you think I do every day?
Why not work in regime change here?
I just walked to work this morning over people dying of drug ODs. We're going to shut this place down unless they fix it. They're mad about Putin. Like, what did Putin do to Washington? Nothing.
Look, in terms of regime change, let's talk this week. The riots in L.A., I've made very clear that the cause of those riots are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. And when you elect communists who hate America, who stop law enforcement...
Wrong. The cause of the riots are because there are groups that are working to distract us from everything that's going on in the Middle East, and they're funding these riots. George Soros, right? It's no different than BLM. It has very little to do with the Democratic leaders. And by the way, I don't like Newsom, and I'm not trying to defend him. I mean, he definitely contributes to the fact that this is able to go on. But the start of them and the reason they're happening is 100% not because of the Democrat leader. It's because of these groups of anarchists and people who are anti-America and want to see it absolutely burn. And they're being funded by the same politicians and the same elites in this country that want us to be distracted from the real issues, like the fact that we are sending billions of dollars to a country that is steamrolling the entire region and getting us into another senseless, endless war.
Stop law enforcement from arresting criminals. You get what you get on the street.
Amen, I agree.
My in-laws are Californians, and they're wonderful people. Heidi grew up on the Central Coast of California, and I remember I was texting with my mother-in-law, and I think I sent her.
All right, we're going to move on to the next one. We're going to move on to how much money is the U.S. sending to Israel? This should be interesting.
The kind of slowly unfolding tragedy of what's happening to our country. The dollars spent, the aid packages to Ukraine to pay the retirement of civil servants in a country that we have nothing to do with. The endless support for Israel, very expensive.
No, we have a lot to do with it.
People are literally buying groceries on credit in the United States. Can you feel like
our former president,
All right, let's stop. You said
our former administration was completely compromised by the country, and that's what we had to do with it.
Israel very expensive. How much support do we give to Israel?
Well, you tell me. You vote for it.
Yeah, it's about $3 billion a year is the military assistance.
Is that the only assistance?
Yeah, we just have military assistance. Israel does not have additional assistance. There's an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, and it's $3 billion a year.
So what is it costing to support the bombing campaign to protect Israel right now from Iran?
So I don't know right now, but I'll...
Yes, you do. You know exactly how much it is. And by the way, that is not always said in there. We make that country what it is. Without our aid, without our help, they would not be a country. They would not exist. We literally fund the existence of that country.
I'll tell you this. Let's go back to the touchstone on foreign policy, American interest. Our support, our military support for Israel is massively in America's national security
But what
interest,
does it
and
cost?
it benefits us enormously.
Well, before we can make independent judgments about whether or not that's true, and I'm certainly open to it, I think we need to know what it costs. So what's the annual cost of defending Israel? Do you know?
$3 billion a year.
No, that's the aid. But I mean, the cost of the weapons, for example.
That's right.
The cost of U.S. personnel there, the cost of moving ships to the region, which we're doing right now, the cost of moving tankers to the region, all of that. Do we know what the cost is?
So look, the last week, I don't know. And there's some lag when the administration, under the Constitution, the commander-in-chief has control of the armed forces. And so President Trump has made some decisions that we'll know the cost over time, but I don't know the last week. I don't have visibility on that. The annual cost is $3 billion. It's a 10-year memorandum of understanding, and that's the principal driver of the cost. But let me make a point. We get massive benefits from Israel. Israel shares the Mossad is one of the best intelligence sources on the planet.
Yeah, and they have every single one. Maybe not every single one. Let's not speak in absolutes, but they have a lot of our politicians, celebrities, influencers, athletes, freaking most of Hollywood in their pocket because of a certain blackmail operation. But we won't go there because we're just conspiracy theorists at that point, right?
On the planet. The enemies of Israel, the people who hate Israel, they all hate us. It's almost a perfect overlap. And so if we tried to recreate...
I wonder why. Maybe it's because since the creation of the state of Israel, America has funded and aided this country in taking people out of in displacing people and killing them at mass and completely destabilizing the entire region and every country around it. Maybe that's why they also hate us. I don't know.
Tried to recreate. If we're just trying to defend America, we tried to recreate the national security benefits of our alliance with Israel. It would cost, I don't know, $30 billion, $300 billion.
So can you elaborate? And again, I'm going into this as someone who's always liked Israel and still does. But I also think at this point, given where we are, it's fair to ask rational questions about what the benefits are.
Good.
So does Mossad share all of its intelligence with us?
Oh, probably not, but they share a lot. We don't share all of our intelligence with them, but we share a lot. It's a close alliance.
Do they spy domestically in the United States?
Oh, they probably do, and we do as well.
Oh, okay, cool. That's fine. It's fine. They spy on us, and we spy on them, and it's fine. It's not a big deal. Like, they're for sure still our best ally.
And friends and allies spy on each other, and I assume all of our allies spy on us.
And that's okay with you?
You know what? One of the things about being a conservative is that you're not naive and utopian. You don't think humans are all... Part of the reason socialism doesn't work is the mantra from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs doesn't work. As a conservative, I assume people act in their rational self-interest.
So it's conservative to pay people to spy on you?
It's conservative to recognize that human beings act in their own self-interest, and every one of our friends spies on us, and I'm not...
Do you like it? That's my question. I'm not asking whether they have motive to do it. Of course they do. I understand that, and by the way, I'm not mad at them. But you're an American lawmaker, so I just want to know. Hold on, I want to know your attitude. Yeah. You said that your guiding principle, in fact, the only principle, the only criterion.
I said guiding, the overwhelming. I wouldn't say only.
Is it in America's interest? Is it in America's interest for Israel to spy on us?
No.
On the president?
No, it's not in America's interest for Israel to spy on us.
It is in America's interest to be closely allied with Israel because we get huge benefits for it. And you want to see the clearest...
But I just want to stop on the spying for a second. That it takes place, as you know, and including on the President of the United States and several presidents. And I just want to know if that's okay and why is it okay? Wouldn't an American lawmaker say to a client state, you're not allowed to spy on us. I'm sorry. I know why you want to. I'm not mad at you, but you're
look,
not allowed to.
Sure.
And I don't care for it. I don't want to be spied on by you. It's kind of weird not to say that, but you don't seem able to say that.
Sure, I would say don't spy on us. They're going to anyway. And by the way, the Brits are, the Canadians are. Like, I don't think...
Well, I'm not for that at all. Okay. I think it's disgusting. But we don't actually pay their... we're not their most meaningful sponsor.
Bingo.
We're not sort of paying for the operations of the British government.
So I got to say, and this is... it's weird... We're talking about isolationists, the obsession with Israel. Why is Israel...
Oh, I don't think I'm obsessed with Israel.
Okay, but I think a lot of people are. And like the question, Israel spies on us. Well, so does every other country. Why are you mad at Israel?
This is something that is brought up in almost every single conversation with somebody who is pro-Israel versus somebody who is anti-Israel. And by the way, it's not even anti-Israel. It's just anti the political government state of Israel now and what they are doing in the Middle East. And the reason why everybody is, quote unquote, as these people say, obsessed with what's going on right now is because it is our tax dollars going over there to fund what none of us agree with or want to be a part of. Maybe not none of us, but the majority of us. It's because it is completely against the America First policy that Trump and this administration are all supposedly all about and what we voted for as Americans. That's why. The reason why we're obsessed with it is because it's going against everything that we want when it comes to America. It is not America first. So it's not about obsession. It's about the fact that we want people to hear us and to actually give us some answers as to why it's okay that we're going completely against what they ran on. And then at the same time, why it's not okay for us to ask questions. Because there's really only one country and one people that it seems like you just can't ask questions about. Or all of a sudden now you're labeled X, Y, and Z, and you hate this group of people. And it's like, it's the same thing as with the whole BLM thing, right? It's this whole idea that if you criticize or talk about this one thing, you're blacklisted. And all of a sudden now you're this hateful, terrible person who supports extreme ideology and terrorism just because you don't want to be involved in a foreign war with a foreign country that seems to be taking far more than they actually give, but somehow is also considered our greatest ally. I don't know why that's crazy. It's not. That's the answer. I do know it's not crazy, but this is what happens.
So does every other country. Why are you mad at Israel?
I guess. Oh no. I'm hardly the one who's. I've never taken money from the Israel lobby. Have you?
Taken money from the Israel...
From AIPAC.
So AIPAC raises a lot of money for me, but it's actually a misnomer because the people who raise money are individuals. Right. So it's not the PAC itself, but they're individual members who believe in the American-Israeli friendship and relationship. Is AIPAC
a foreign lobby?
No, it's an American lobby. It's the AIPAC stands for the America-Israeli Political Action Committee.
What does it lobby for?
So, to be honest, not a whole lot effectively. Listen, I came into Congress 13 years ago with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate.
Great.
And I've worked every day to do that. AIPAC, a lot of times...
Makes sense. You made a lot of money.
I wish were much more effective. Like, there are folks online who are in the fever swamp of terrified of AIPAC. And AIPAC...
I'm not terrified of AIPAC at all. You're the one who seems a little uncomfortable when I'm asking.
No, not uncomfortable at all.
I'm just asking what AIPAC does. My understanding, having known a lot of people who work at AIPAC, is that it lobbies on behalf of the Israeli government.
Wrong.
Oh, okay.
It's objectively
when was the last time AIPAC took a position that deviated from Prime Minister Netanyahu?
All the time.
Name one.
Okay. Let me go back and give a little history. If you want to do a deep dive on AIPAC,
I don't. I want to do a shallow dive.
No.
I want to get to the core question. AIPAC is lobbying for a foreign government, and I don't. It's not.
No.
It's lobbying for the United States.
It is lobbying for a strong U.S.-Israeli relationship.
Okay.
And
so it's not has nothing to do with the foreign government.
It wants America and Israel to be closely allied.
It's lobbying for Israel. Period. It's really that simple. This is ridiculous that Cruz is trying to walk around this, but he is because, of course, he can't say anything else.
Okay, but it's lobbying on behalf of the interests of another country.
So that's not true at all. And if
not true.
No.
How much contact do you think AIPAC leaders have with the government of Israel?
No idea. I imagine some. I think the government of Israel is often frustrated with AIPAC because AIPAC's not nearly strong enough.
Do you think there's any coordination?
What's really interesting is Tucker knows the answer to this, obviously. He's prodding him, but it's on purpose because he did an episode with Thomas Massey where Thomas Massey literally told him how AIPAC works, how much influence they have with all these different politicians. Thomas Massey, by the way, doesn't take any money from AIPAC. He's one of the only politicians that doesn't. Honestly, we could pull that clip up real quick and you can watch that. Check this out.
By the way, everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are, firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
I don't know how it works on the Democrat side, but that's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them, and they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them. So I've had
that's absolutely crazy.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, "I'll talk to my AIPAC person." And it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. I'll talk to my AIPAC guy and see if I can get him to, dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
It doesn't benefit anybody. Why would they want to tell their constituents that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that.
Have you seen any other country do anything like this? Like
no.
Russia obviously determines the outcome of our elections. We keep hearing that. Does anyone have a Putin guy that they talk to?
Not only do they not have a Putin guy, look, they don't have a Britain guy. They don't have an Australian guy. They don't have a Germany dude. It's the only country that does this.
But that's the reality. He knows the answer to this, but Cruz will not say. He can't say.
Between the government of Israel and AIPAC?
Do they talk? Sure. If you're lobbying for more U.S.-Mexico trade, would you talk to people in the U.S. and Mexico and the government? Sure.
Give me a break.
So I'm not mad about that. There are a million countries that lobby Washington. I like a lot of those countries, including Israel.
But AIPAC are Americans. They're not Israelis.
Hold on. There are tons of Americans who lobby on behalf of foreign governments. I know them. I'm related to some of them. I know how it works. I'm from here. So my question is not, is it outrageous that foreign governments lobby the United States? They all do, okay, including Israel. My only question is, why don't we admit that is what's happening? You're denying it, but it's true.
Yeah,
and
why is false.
Why aren't they registered as a foreign lobby?
Because they're not.
They are.
Not a foreign lobby.
They are 100% a foreign lobby.
There's a fever swamp. Look,
it's not a fever swamp. These are very reasonable questions, and you've accused me of being obsessed with Israel, which I'm not.
I actually haven't. I've said
and of being
isolationist
feverish about it, which I'm not at all. I find it's a very tender spot when you ask it, and I don't know why.
So, Tucker, all right, let's go back. I was first elected to the Senate in 2012. I came in Obama's second term. And I actually saw AIPAC be badly wounded in a way they never came back from. And the second term is when Obama did the Iran nuclear deal. And the Iran nuclear deal, I think, was catastrophic. And AIPAC went all in lobbying against it.
Yeah.
And they failed. And I was the leading opponent of the Iran nuclear deal.
Oh, I know. They definitely failed, yes.
They failed. And what happened, the Obama White House told every Democrat, when I got here, there used to be real bipartisan support for Israel. That has largely disappeared.
I wonder why.
And it's the Obama nuclear deal that...
I wonder why the large bipartisan support for Israel has disappeared.
And it's the Obama nuclear deal that caused it, because the Obama White House told every Democrat, pick. You either stand with Israel or you're a Democrat and you stand with the Obama White House. And almost every single Democrat member of Congress said, I'm a Democrat first, to hell with Israel. And then I watched as AIPAC, every one of those Democrats got reelected and AIPAC did nothing about it. And it dramatically reduced AIPAC's influence.
I agree. I watched it happen.
And by the way, I told AIPAC, I said, look, the analogy, if the NRA was supporting a bunch of politicians and cared about the Second Amendment, and you had politicians that vote to confiscate people's guns, and the NRA turned around and raised money for the people who voted to confiscate guns, you know what?
We're going to skip ahead to the next timestamp. This one is, to what extent is the U.S. government influenced by foreign governments?
I'm only trying to get to the question of what AIPAC is, and I don't think you're being straightforward about it. AIPAC is lobbying on behalf of the interests of a foreign country
Facts.
and they're not registered. And you're saying, no, that's not true. You're saying that they don't coordinate with the Israeli government.
Of course, I coordinate. Do they talk with them? I don't know what they do. I can
But
tell
why don't you care? Isn't it meaningful if a foreign government...
Hey, I talk with Israel all the time. I talk
course you do.
with
Of course you
foreign
do.
countries all the time.
Oh, we know you do.
The law is, and a lot of people have been prosecuted under this law, that if you are lobbying on behalf of foreign government, you must register. That's it. It's really simple. And I don't know why, if I'm working from Malaysia or Qatar or Belgium, and I'm working on behalf of its government's interests through a group of Americans who are representing the friendship between those two nations, I have to register under the Foreign Agent Registration Act. And if I don't, I can go to jail. And people have gone to jail, including people I know. So I don't understand why we don't just be honest and say they're lobbying on behalf of a foreign government, they're coordinating with the government. You know that that's true.
That is not only not true, that is false.
They're not coordinating with the Israeli government?
Do you know how AIPAC raises money?
What?
For elected officials, like what they do, like what the actual mechanics is?
I get that. I mean, they go to people who are sympathetic to Israel and raise money and then send it to candidates who
wrong.
agree with them.
So what they'll do is, so in my last election, AIPAC endorsed me. And they'll host a fundraiser. And they'll host a fundraiser in Dallas or Houston or Atlanta or New York or LA. And they'll do a fundraiser and they'll get someone who will host it. And it's usually a business owner, lawyer, doctor, someone who hosts it. And you get typically at an AIPAC fundraiser, 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 people who live in that city.
Right.
Who care about a strong U.S.-Israel relationship.
Yeah.
And if they have, 50 people, each of them writes a $1,000 check and you raise $50,000.
Yeah, I've been to an AIPAC fundraiser. I know what it looks like.
But that is not, and by the way, there's no representative of the Israeli government there. You have, when you're in Dallas,
This
you're
is
meeting
such a
with...
false and silly conversation. I know all this. The question is are AIPAC's goals shaped by the goals of the Israeli government to any extent?
Okay,
That's a
that's
really
different
simple
from
Cruz is
lobbying
trying to
on behalf
redirect
of.
so hard. He's trying to redirect so hard.
AIPAC's goals shaped by the goals of the Israeli government. And I'm just going to ask you that question straightforwardly. And if you say no, I think we both know that's not true.
Hey, are they shaped by? Is that...
Are they coordinating with the Israeli government?
Are they talking
to
with them?
represent
Yes.
the
Is
Israeli
Israel
government?
directing them? You want to talk about FARA, the law on lobbying on behalf of someone?
Yeah.
It is, I hire you and you lobby on behalf of me. I direct you. Does Israel direct AIPAC? No, they are not lobbying on behalf of them. Do they care about them? Yes, but...
Do you think that it's just interesting because what you're now describing in a very defensive way, I will say, is foreign influence over our politics?
No.
And you began, and it's so transparently obvious to everybody. I don't know why you would be embarrassed of it. You've said that you are sincerely for Israel. I believe you. I don't think you have some weird agenda. You seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel. When we're talking about foreign countries,
It's hardly an obsession.
you're not talking about Chinese, you're not talking about Japanese, you're not talking about the Brits, you're not talking about the French. The question...
Here we go. This is what it always gets to. When they feel like they're backed against the wall, it's always pin it on the person that they're talking to as an obsession or as something that just makes someone crazy or makes them radical or extreme about this certain topic. And it's really not obsession at all. All he's doing is trying to get one answer, one simple answer. And every single time he asks, Cruz is either lying or redirecting over and over and over and over and over.
An obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese. You're not talking about Japanese. You're not talking about the Brits. You're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now.
Yeah, see? The reason he's not talking about the other ones is because AIPAC is the only foreign lobby that isn't registered with the FARA Act. That's what he's getting at. The AIPAC is the only one. And the question is always why? And it's always a redirect every time you ask that question. And then you dig into the times where it was almost registered as a foreign agency. And guess what? Some pretty interesting things happened. Like one of our presidents dying months later. Just saying. So it's textbook. This happens every single time. And now he's even going to the point where he's insinuating that Tucker is an anti-Semite. And it's like, this is the playbook. This is the playbook. So pay close attention.
You're asking the questions, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that. And I have
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually, I can speak for myself
Good.
and tell you what I am saying.
Good.
On
Wait, let's just rewind that back really quick and let's see if he even said the word Jew once.
I don't think you have some weird agenda. You seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel, when we're talking about foreign countries,
it's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese, you're not talking about Japanese, you're not talking about the Brits, you're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now. Senator, you're asking... Which is to what extent, and it's interesting you're trying to derail my questions by calling me an anti-Semite, which you are.
I did not.
Of course you are. And rather than be honorable enough to say it right to my face, you are in a sleazy, feline way implying it, or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions about the Jews. There's nothing to do with Jews or Judaism. It has to do with the foreign government.
Isn't Israel controlling our foreign policy? That's not about the Jews?
You said, I'm asking you...
And by the way, you're the one that just called me, I think, a sleazy feline. So let's be clear.
It's sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite, which you just did.
No, I just said, why is that the only question you're asking? You answer it. Give me another reason. If you're not an anti-Semite, give me another reason why the obsession is Israel.
I am in no sense obsessed with Israel. We are on the brink of war with Iran. And so these are valid questions.
But you're not asking about Iran or the
If I can finish, you asked me why I'm obsessed with Israel.
Yep.
3 minutes after telling me that when you first ran for Congress, you elucidated one of your main goals, which is to defend Israel.
Yes.
And I'm the one who's obsessed with Israel. I don't see a lawmaker's job as defending the interests of a foreign government, period. Okay. Any government, including the ones that my ancestors come from.
Bingo.
So that's my position. That does not make me an anti-Semite. And shame on you for suggesting otherwise. And I mean that. And that's low, and you know it's low. So why don't you just answer my questions
I'll
in a
answer any
straightforward,
question
rational way? You certainly have the IQ to do it.
So, shame on you is cute, by the way, Tucker.
It is. It's not cute. I'm offended. I'm obsessed with the Jews. You just told me
you
that
just called me a sleazy feline.
It is sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite for asking questions about how my government is run.
You want to count how many questions you asked about? What about the Jews? What about Israel? What about AIPAC?
I never asked about the Jews. This has nothing to do with the Jews, whatever that means.
It always comes back to this. Anytime you ask questions about Israel and the government of Israel and what they're doing and why we're involved and the interest in America and all these different things, it always comes back to, oh, well, you're just attacking the Jews. He hasn't said the Jews one time. It is not about the entire group of this religious group of people. That's not what it's about. And he's never made it about that. But that is always the redirect. The redirect is always to make it about the Jews. And that's not what these questions are about. That's not what any of us are asking. But it's the easiest way to deflect everything else and to put it back on this person to make them seem like they're crazy and they're just, like I said, an extremist and hateful and everything else. Textbook Hasbara.
This has to do with a foreign government. And once again, shame on you for conflating the two. They have nothing to do with each other. I'm talking about the influence of
Israel and Jews have nothing to do with each other?
All Jews, or an attack on all Jews, which I am not, nor would I ever be undertaking now. I'm not attacking anybody.
By the way, that's who Iran wants to kill, is all the Jews and all the Americans.
And I'm totally opposed.
That's the next redirect. Did you catch it? Immediately, once he completely shattered the argument of him being an anti-Semite, it immediately goes then back to, and it always goes back to, well, this group that you're not talking about wants to kill all the Jews, and that's their goal, and then they'll go into the Hamas Charter and all this other crap, and it's always the same playbook.
To that, okay? But now, because
except you don't want to do anything about it.
Decisions need to be made.
We can talk about those decisions.
And I plan to.
Good.
But I just want to get a sense of whether you think, having described yourself as an America First person whose only criterion for judgment on foreign policy is America's national interest, to what extent you're influenced by a foreign government, which gives you a lot of money through its lobby, and you're claiming this has nothing to do with the foreign government. They're not coordinating. Yes, they're spying on us, but it doesn't bother you. And I'm sort of wondering, like, what is this? This is one of the weirdest conversations I've ever had.
I'll tell you what, and I'll answer any question you like, but let's try to...
Are you going to call me an anti-Semite again, or no?
Let's try to ratchet down the temperature a little.
You're the one who went to motive. I'm asking honest questions.
I'm
just asking questions. Yes, that's it. That is what I'm doing.
Let's try to ratchet down the temperature a little bit.
Okay.
It's so funny. Let's try to ratchet down the temperature a little bit. He's literally the one that started accusing Tucker of being something he's not, labeling him as something that he's not, all because Tucker's simply asking questions that he won't answer. And quite frankly, we know he can't answer.
And did you ever see an Eddie Murphy movie called The Distinguished Gentleman?
No.
It's a great movie. It's actually a fun comedy about politics. And Eddie Murphy in the movie is a con man who gets elected to Congress. And he's literally a con man who, the congressman dies, he has the same name, and so he runs and they get elected. And there's a scene in the movie where Eddie Murphy is a freshman member of Congress, and he's sitting down with a sleazy lobbyist. And he's asking the lobbyist, all right, what should my positions be on, I think they were talking about power plants and electrical transmission lines. And the lobbyist's like, well, what do you believe? And Eddie Murphy, as the con man, said, I don't care. Whatever gets me the most money. I'll do whatever gets me the most money. And the lobbyist says, no. Pick a side. Doesn't matter what you pick. If you pick one side, we'll go shake down everyone who supports that side and they'll give you money. If you pick the other side, that's fine. We'll just go to the other side and shake down that. That's a little bit the way it works. And you often get leftists in the media who say, for example, if you support the Second Amendment, as you do and I do, well, you're just bought and paid for by the NRA. And that actually is backwards. I believe in the Second Amendment because I believe in the Constitution. Now, am I proud that the NRA supports me? Sure, because people who care about the Second Amendment want to support leaders who fight for it. But it gets it backward. Look, AIPAC, when I ran for the Senate, AIPAC didn't support me. I supported Israel before they supported me. I'm happy to have their support because they share my objective.
No, but you're missing it. I'm not suggesting that you're bought and paid for. I'm not saying that.
I want to go back and take
sincere.
I want to go back and take the transcript because you just said a minute ago, I'm slightly paraphrasing, but are you lobbying for a foreign government because they pay you a lot of money? That's basically what you said. So you are suggesting that.
Let me just be clear about what I think. Your views seem totally sincere.
Yes.
You take money from people who agree with you.
Yeah.
I believe that. I even
take money from people who disagree with me.
I'm only trying to get to the question of to what extent is the U.S. government influenced by other governments? And it's a lot.
Of course.
It's hardly just Israel. It's hardly just Israel. I don't think Israel's the main one. There are lots of governments. China is a massive influence on this city.
And it's a huge problem.
As you know, I couldn't agree more. And there are lots of other. The UK, which is a truly sinister place, in my opinion, as a ethnic Brit, I can say. I think that's my view. Maybe you disagree.
I think they're on the wrong path. I love the Brits, but their government has gone off the rails. Without even getting into that. I'm just saying I don't think Israel's the only one. But it's the only one where you're instantly called an anti-Semite for asking questions. And it's also the only government that no one will ever criticize.
Exactly.
And
people criticize Israel every minute of every day. Like the only government that people will not criticize, Rashida Tlaib just tweeted out calling Benjamin Netanyahu a...
Yeah, but the people that are criticizing Israel and quote unquote like getting away with it and not having some crazy repercussions, they're the ones that already have these massive, massive followings and tons of money and tons of influence. And so they can't be hurt as badly as anybody else. But like, for example, smaller people, smaller influencers, smaller accounts start talking about Israel and it completely destroys their engagement. And it paints a label and a target on their back. It's just the reality. And even some of these celebrities, even some of these influencers, I mean, look at what happened to Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan has been so pro-Israel for so long. And then the minute that he simply just comes out and says, hey, I've learned more about this occupation and what's going on over there, and I don't agree with it. And the minute he called it out and tried to bring light to it, he was smeared as an anti-Semite and a Jew hater and all these terrible things when it is completely the opposite of what he has talked about for who knows how long. But it was an immediate smear campaign. And this is how it works. And this is what Tucker's talking about. And Cruz knows this too. But again, it's just a redirect. We'll watch. We'll see what he says.
Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal.
Rashida Tlaib? No,
you said no one will criticize.
No, I'm talking about Republicans that I would vote for, including you. And I'm saying, whatever. I don't even like talking about Israel. What I care about, I never do because it's not worth being called anti-Semites from AIPAC recipients. But now we are on the verge of joining a war, and I just want to be clear about why we're doing this.
All right, so, and let's get into Iran momentarily, but you suggested it was a strange thing that I said a minute ago that when I came into the Senate, I resolved that I was going to be the leading defender of Israel. And what you didn't ask is why, so let me tell you why.
No, you said I was obsessed with Israel, and you had just told me that, like, your driving motive to get to the Senate was to defend Israel. I'm like, I don't think I'm the one who's obsessed with Israel.
Okay,
I don't even think about Israel.
Tucker, words matter.
Uh-huh.
And you know that. I said I resolved to be the leading defender of Israel, and you said your driving motive, the reason you're in the Senate.
You want to be the leading defender of Israel. I would think if I ran for Senate, I'd be like, there are people dying of drug ODs on the street.
My driving motive is to fight for Texas and America, and to fight for jobs, and to fight for the Constitution. And you played a very, very careful word game of a lie to you.
You're the one who said it, not me.
So you still haven't asked why, but I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
And the reason is twofold. Number one, as a Christian, growing up in Sunday school, I was taught
Get the
from
freak
the Bible,
out of here.
those who bless Israel
You gotta
will
be
be
kidding
blessed,
me.
and those who curse Israel will be
Oh,
cursed.
here we go.
And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of the
The fact that a politician is going to pull out the Christian card in order to justify the fact that he's helping and supporting the funding of the military industrial complex and a nation that is very much involved in some of the worst atrocities. Get out of here. Are you kidding me? This is disgusting. And this is how these people work, man. You got to be joking. I should have seen it coming, though.
those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel.
Yeah, and it's not talking about the
That's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it.
Genesis.
I don't have the scripture off the tip of my. You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis. But so you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it. And you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology. I'm confused.
Yeah, it's definitely not
does
talking
that
about the
even
current
mean?
political
Tucker?
state and government
I'm a
of
Christian.
Israel.
I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two,
Hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And we're
What does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what? Hold on. Define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel. Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the
No,
country
no,
you've asked
don't
like
answer the
49
question.
questions about.
So that's what Genesis. That's what God is talking about.
The nation
in
of
Genesis.
Israel, yes.
So is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel.
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the
They're
nation
the
God's
descendants of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis? Is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
And by the way, it's not run by Benjamin Netanyahu as a dictator. It's a
I'm not
democratic
saying he's a
country that
dictator.
elected.
He's the,
but
he's the prime minister.
It's so funny. He had to say that. Did you catch that? He had to throw that out there because if anything, Tucker didn't even say anything about Netanyahu being a dictator, but he had to throw that out there and make sure that he said those words, that Netanyahu is not a dictator.
right.
What?
But just like, America is the country run by Donald Trump. No, actually, the American people elected Donald Trump. The same principle
This is
there.
silly. I'm talking about the political entity of modern Israel.
Yes, and that is
You believe
Israel.
that's what God was talking about in
Yes.
Genesis.
I do, but
That country's existed since when?
for thousands of years. Now, there was a time when it didn't exist, and then it was recreated just over 70
But
years ago.
I'm saying, I think most people understand that line in Genesis to refer to the Jewish people, God's chosen people.
Facts.
That's not what it says.
Okay, Israel, but you don't even know where in the Bible it is. So I don't know if we can.
I don't remember the scriptural citation. But, okay, I keep...
It's like Genesis 16 or something like that. But yes, it's in the earlier part of the book. But the point
It's
is,
referring to the 12
you keep
tribes of
interrupting
Israel.
me before I finish
it's
my
just
sentence.
important to know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're. So you're saying, as a Christian, if I believe in Jesus, I have to support the modern state of Israel.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm explaining for me what my motivation is.
But okay, so I'm just trying to understand. You said God tells you to support the modern state of Israel in the Bible, in some place in the Bible that you heard about, but you don't know where it is. That's your theology?
You're going back, am I a sleazy feline again? I mean,
If you accuse me of anti-Semitism again, I will say that, but I don't think you will.
Try to be a little less condescending. I'm trying to have a
Being
conversation.
condescending. You're throwing this stuff out, and it's my job to figure out what you're talking about.
Okay,
but I don't understand.
But you're not letting me.
Okay. I'm sorry. I want to be polite.
That is, for me, a personal motivation. But I also, what I was about to say, I don't believe my personal faith, not everyone who I represent is a Christian. It's not an argument for me to give that we should do this because of my faith. And so as an elected official, I don't give that as the reason we should support Israel. That is a personal motivation for me, but I don't think it is the reason we should. The reason that I am the leading defender of Israel is because Israel is our strongest ally in the Middle East, an incredibly troubled part of the world, and supporting Israel benefits America. And the clearest illustration of that is what is happening right now.
Can you-
Let me just
Almost
make this
getting
point.
involved in another conflict in the Middle East.
That's it.
Okay.
Look, Iran, I think the most acute national security
Actually,
threat
not
facing
almost. They've
America
confirmed
right
that we
now
are.
is the threat of a nuclear Iran. I think China is the biggest long-term threat, but acute and near-term is a nuclear Iran.
Okay.
And I think Israel is doing a massive favor to America right now by trying to take out Iran.
No, they're doing a massive
capacity.
favor
The
for
reason
Israel.
I view
And we
Iran
are
differently
funding
than we
it.
talked
We're doing the
before
favor,
about
making
Iraq.
it
I opposed the
possible.
Iraq War. We talked about Syria. I opposed military intervention in Syria. The reason for that is those did not pose a threat to the United States. I think Iran is markedly different. Number one, the Ayatollah is a religious zealot. He is a lunatic, but a particularly dangerous kind of lunatic because he's driven by religious fervor.
Okay, I got to stop it there. A religious lunatic driven. What did he say just now? Hold on. Let's go back really quick.
It is the reason we should. The reason that I am the
I need to go
leader
back.
of Israel is because
Okay, so a lunatic driven by religious fervor. Let's just talk about this real quick because this is insane. That and you know what? It's just another example of they always put the labels and the characteristics and the qualities of themselves on their enemies. This is the part that I cannot get over, and the reason why I've been so outspoken against this like Zionist movement thing, right? It's like the whole premise of the state of Israel and the reason why we have been told that we have to support them unequivocally and that every other nation that is fighting against them is totally irrelevant and, you know, whatever else. Like the whole conflict itself revolves around the fact that one group of people, Israel, believe, right? And it's not even all of Israel, by the way. So let's just say that, right? Because I know people are going to say, well, no. It's a certain group of those people, including the current government and the leader. They believe that their God told them that that part of the world was promised to them. And so they believe that they get to take it from other people who don't believe in the same God or understand the same scripture that supposedly this came from, and that doesn't matter. That their freedom and the ability for them to live in the place that they were before they got there, before Israel got there, it doesn't matter because their God and their religious scripture told them that that land belongs to them. So F the rest of them, right? That's the basis of this Zionist movement. And that's what I cannot I cannot wrap my head around it because it's not right. A simple explanation or a simple like comparison would be we straight up, and by the way, I know that some people are going to say, well, but it was taken from them thousands of years ago, blah, blah, blah. Regardless of the religious thing, let's just talk about that in general. Thousands of years ago, people got conquered and land was taken. That was just how it is and how it worked. And then once the land was taken, it was these people. And then they would take it and it was those people. And that's how it worked. But see, we don't live in thousands of years ago anymore. And it's not okay to just go in and take somebody's land. One of the reasons that we're literally dealing with this conflict in Ukraine and Russia, right? It's not okay. It's not a thing that we allow people to do. And yet this is the one situation where we not only allow it to happen, we support it to this day. We support the displacement of millions of people. And those people that refuse to leave, we support the murder of them. And so, yeah, it's hard for me to understand because let me give you a simple explanation or a simple comparison. It's as if let's just say the natives, right? The natives in here in America, all of a sudden came up and said, our God and our religious text says that this land is actually ours. You took it from us and it's ours. And it's our right to take it back and not only take it back, but push you completely off of it. And then we're going to push you into this small region and you're going to have to live there or you're going to have to go somewhere else. And that's just how it is. And there's nothing you can do about it. Oh, and by the way, the biggest countries and nations of the world, they're also going to support us in this and give us all the aid and all the support we need to make sure that we can keep this area and you can't come in and take it from us and you can't come back. And then, by the way, when you retaliate because we've taken your homes and we've killed your people, we're going to retaliate even more and we're going to call it self-defense. Right? But it's all because a God and the religious text that you don't understand or believe in says that this is how it needs to be. Freedom doesn't end where religious belief begins. Okay? It's the same reason why I'm a Christian, but I absolutely believe that people should have the ability to be gay if they want to be, or whatever, right? Even though I don't agree with it, and my personal faith goes against my personal faith, right? My faith and my religion, they don't dictate what other people do with their freedom. And that is the point. But in this situation, that's what's happening. These people are being forced to believe in another God and another religious text and act accordingly to what they said, to what they say is the commandment or whatever, right? And it's not. That's not it. So this guy saying, it's really rich, this guy saying that this person is driven by religious fervor and he's he's a lunatic and the craziest of them. What's Netanyahu? If that's the case.
When he says death to America and death to Israel, I believe him. And I think Iran is trying to get a nuclear weapon because there is a very real possibility they would use a nuclear weapon. So you want to ask, how does supporting Israel benefit us? Right now, this tiny little country, the size of the state of New Jersey, is
Let me just stop that really quick, too, because he said that they're fighting our enemies for us. There are enemies because of the aid and support we have given Israel. Did you guys know, I don't know if you knew this, but did you know that the first terrorist organization that actually existed in the Palestine, in this whole region, it was by Israel? It was called the Likud and the Lehi. Yeah. Or not the Likud, excuse me. The Lehi and the Haganah. Yeah. These were the first terrorist organizations. Terrorists being that they committed violent actions for a religious or political purpose. Yeah. Yeah, they were the first ones. And then came the other terrorist organizations from the Arabs and from the Muslims, right? So one thing led to another, and now we have all these radical Muslim people who do chant death to America and want to kill Americans and want to kill everybody in Israel, right? But nobody ever asks why. And I'm not justifying it either. They're evil, just like the people that want to murder anybody else would be evil. Like, I consider all of that evil. Extremism, terrorism, all of it. Okay? It's why I say Zionism is evil. But why are we never asking, how did that become a thing? And now for Cruz to say, well, it's in our best interest because they're fighting our enemies that we created, that they created. So how does that, it doesn't benefit us. It's like they've already done the damage. Having this ally has not benefited us. It's caused more problems that we have to find more solutions to that they just happen to be the solution to.
Weapon,
Yes.
And he will do whatever it takes to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. He said that like 100 times. He clearly means it. I think he will use force to effect that if he feels he has to. I think he's been really clear about that. I don't know, but it seems that way. Do you feel that? Do you think that's correct?
Whether he would use force to stop a nuclear weapon, I think he has put that option on the table.
He certainly suggested. I mean, I have literally no idea what's going to happen, but just reading his statements, he's made that really clear.
So what he has been very clear about, and I spoke with the president on Sunday, is he has been very clear to Iran that if they attack U.S. servicemen and women, there will be real consequences and I think very serious military response.
By the way, this is a sidebar, but I just can't resist. The Prime Minister of Israel said that Iran tried to assassinate Donald Trump twice.
Yeah, I read your newsletter this morning,
But do you believe that's true?
Again, I think it was sort of a word game. What is true is Iran is trying to assassinate Donald J. Trump, and they have hired hitmen. Now, you pointed out...
No, he said that they have tried twice to kill him, and I don't know that, I don't have any evidence that's true, but I sort of wonder if that is true. Why aren't we at war with them already?
Okay, And I read your newsletter this morning, and I thought it was playing word games to draw a political point.
How's that a word game? It's my president. And
can I tell you?
Yeah, please.
Okay. You rightly pointed out there's no evidence that this clown in Butler, Pennsylvania, who shot the president was working for the Iranians. I don't think he was. There's no evidence of that. Although I would like to know more about.
There's no evidence of anything because everything was completely wiped. And don't know if you guys noticed, but it just kind of faded from the news cycle and nobody really talks about it anymore. It's like, what happened? Who was he? Where did he come from? What's the background? Why was there not like 24/7 news coverage for the next few months about this guy? But those are questions we don't ask, right?
I agree.
Who he was and what's
I
going
totally
on.
Agree.
But I don't find it plausible that he was working for the Iranians. So, was that caused by the Iranians? No. But what is true, and what your newsletter didn't acknowledge, is it true or false that Iran is currently trying to murder Donald J. Trump and has paid hitmen to do so?
Well, that's the question, and I don't know the Butler, Pennsylvania thing.
Pennsylvania.
Let's just put that aside. I don't know.
So Netanyahu misspoke when he said those two assassinations were because of Iran. But what he was saying that is right is they're actively trying to murder Donald J. Trump.
Is there? Okay, so you're aware of a
Yes.
plot to kill Trump?
Yes, that Iran is paying for. And by the way,
Wait, when?
It has been over the last, I'd say, 18 months to 2 years.
In the United States?
In the United States, yes. They and let me point out.
Has anyone been arrested?
For the Trump attempted assassination, no. But they are also actively paying Iranian hitmen to murder Mike Pompeo when he was President Trump's first Secretary of State, the first term, rather. John Bolton, when John Bolton was National Security Advisor to President Trump, and a guy named Brian Hook, who was Assistant Secretary of State.
Right.
During the Biden administration.
Wait, but hold on. Can we go back to Donald Trump because he's the president? No, it's a big deal. What do you mean? When no one has been arrested for these assassination attempts on Trump.
Yes.
They've hired hitmen. How do we know that?
All right, let me break it down. People have been arrested. So the reason I brought up Pompeo, Bolton, and Hook, who are under active assassination attempts because of their service in the first Trump administration, under the Biden administration.
Well, they say that. I've never seen any evidence of it.
Can I give you the evidence?
Well, let's just stick with Trump.
No, because these are interrelated. So let me make a bloody point. Under the Biden administration, the State Department was spending $2 million a month providing security for Pompeo, Bolton, and Hook. And they did arrest Iranian hitmen at John Bolton's apartment complex who rented, I think, the apartment next to him and were actively trying to assassinate him, and they went and arrested them. So, yes, they caught Iranian hitmen. Now, it so happens Iran's not very good at it. And so they are actively trying. And in fact,
but what about Trump? He's the president. If there's a plot to kill Trump by the Iranians,
okay, so you dispute that the Iranians are trying to kill Trump?
Of course. I mean, that's the most important question. The Prime Minister of Israel just said there have been 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump by the Iranians. And I think it's a very fair question, maybe you disagree, to ask, what are you talking about?
Okay. And I agree with you that he misspoke.
So there weren't those 2 attempts?
There were 2 attempts, but the clown in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the other guy on the golf course were not connected to the Iranians. That's the part that he misspoke. But by the way, when you speak all the time, occasionally, what he said that was accurate is that Iran is actively trying to murder Donald J. Trump and has paid hitmen.
That's fine.
And he was conflating it with the 2 attempts.
I understand. But I just want to pull that thread because it's so important. I voted for Donald Trump. I campaigned for Donald Trump. Yeah. He's our president. And we're on the cusp of a war. So if there's evidence that Iran paid hitmen to kill Donald Trump and is currently doing that, where's that? Like, what are you even talking? I've never heard that before.
Okay.
Where's the evidence? Who are these people? Why haven't they been arrested? Why are we not at war with Iran?
That's a great question to ask.
How do you know that that's true?
We know that it's true because we have been told that by the military and our intelligence community for the last 2 years.
We meaning who?
Congress has and the public. I mean, we had multiple testimonies. I can send you testimony.
Do we know the names of the people or where this happened or what they tried to do to kill Trump?
We do not. We have not apprehended an Iranian hitman trying to kill him. We know that Iran is trying to do so.
In the United States?
Yes. And by the way, like Iran...
This just seems like a huge headline, and you're acting like everyone knows this. I didn't know that.
Iran put out a whole video about murdering Trump.
Right, but I've never heard evidence that there are hitmen in the United States. I mean, trying to kill Trump right now, we should like have a nationwide dragnet on this, and we should attack Iran immediately if that's true. Don't you think?
No.
If
But
they're trying to assassinate our president,
they have been for 2 years.
then
They
why
are
aren't
our
we
enemies.
at war with them?
Well, we are trying to
Why don't
take
we
out-
just nuke Tehran if they're trying to murder our president? There's nothing that you could do that would be worse for the United States than murdering Trump. And I just don't
Amen. I
understand
agree with
why
that.
you're not calling for the use of nuclear weapons against the Ayatollah right now. I'm serious. If you really believe they're
the
trying to
use
murder
of nuclear weapons. See,
whatever
that's part
it
of the
takes.
problem of. So
what do you mean?
It's,
You don't seem to take the allegations seriously. I do. If you believe
Okay.
they're trying to murder Trump, we need to stop what we're doing and punish them.
Can I ask something? And I mean this sincerely. So, all right, 20 years ago, you were, I think it's fair to say, in the interventionist world. You were a vocal,
Big time.
You
Big
were a
time.
vocal defender of the Iraq War.
I was a promoter of the Iraq War.
And you now, and look, I think you were mistaken. I think you were mistaken. That's okay. Look, people change and learn, and that's part of the journey of being human. Your views have moved, though. In my view, they've gone way too far the other end. And so
I'm
I just
totally
want to ask
confused.
why.
I'm saying, hold on. Wait, this is one of the weirdest conversations I've ever had. I'm saying if it's true that Iran is trying to murder Trump, we need to move militarily against Iran immediately. That's not isolationism. That's the most. That's a call to violence, which I am calling for. If we believe that Iran is trying to murder our president, we need to strike Iran.
Okay, but
And then
isolationists
you're
say things like, well, then just nuke them, which is what you just said, which is kind of a weird...
Because I'm upset, because I'm taking you seriously. You don't take your own statements
I
seriously.
take my statements very seriously.
So I've asked you, where's the evidence this is true? And you've said, well, they're trying to assassinate Brian Hook or something, which I'm against, by the way. I'm against hurting any American, period, no matter...
So do you dispute that they're trying to murder
I'm not disputing it at all.
and Bolton?
I'm not disputing.
This is crazy because they're talking about Iran. But right now, supposedly, Iran is a crazy threat to us because they have the ability to build nuclear bombs. So they're not effective enough to put assassins in the country to kill the president, but they're effective enough to build nuclear weapons and launch them at the American people. How does that make sense? It doesn't.
I think we should protect the president and we should take out our enemies.
Well,
Israel is doing that right now.
But aren't they? Why would we outsource
And by
it to
the way,
Israel if
your
they're
first
trying
question
to?
was,
why
why
would
are
we
you
have
for
Israel
regime
do it?
change? That's a pretty good example of why I'm for regime change.
Okay, so you're saying we should just go in and take out the government of Iran. Why would we outsource it to Israel if they're trying to murder our president? Okay, you sound like the isolationist.
What I'm saying on any military judgment is there needs to be a cost-benefit analysis of what are the risks versus what are the benefits. In this instance, I think it is enormously in America's interest to do what Israel is doing right now, take out Iran's senior military leadership and take out their nuclear capacity. That is benefiting America, and it is a good risk reward. I would oppose invading Iran and putting boots on the ground to topple the government. If the risk got severe enough, I would support that, but I think the relative risk is not severe enough to justify that step at this time. What I would absolutely oppose under any circumstances is invading Iran and then staying and trying to turn them into a democracy. And part of where Iraq really went off the rails is not only did we topple someone who was fighting radical Islamic terrorists, who was a bad guy, but then we tried the vision of interventionists. It actually overlaps with the vision of a lot of Democrats. Let's go promote democracy in the world.
I agree.
And it is our military's job to kill the bad guys, to defend America. It's not their job to defend international norms. It's not their job. So I have zero desire for the U.S. military to turn Iran into Switzerland. Look, would it be nice if they suddenly became Switzerland? Sure. If I could wave a magic wand, great. But I'm not going to send your kids or my kids to be in front of guns to go make that happen.
Well, bless you for that. I think that is the lesson that I learned from Iraq. I promoted that war. Apparently, unlike you, I was dumber. And I think that you just articulated the main lesson of it, which is it's hard to do that, and we're not good at it. But
I will, and so we are agreeing on that. I will say as a corollary,
vehemently agreeing.
As a corollary, that doesn't mean that horrible, evil dictators are okay. And going back to Reagan and the Cold War, we have lots of weapons. I am happy to highlight the brutality, the oppression, the human rights abuses of regimes, even though I don't want to invade them, because I think the bullying
your wife good?
of American leadership
She okay?
is really powerful. And I think dictatorships are
This stuff you're going to be able to skip
terrible.
through.
So I've spent 13
Just wherever
years
you
in
see
Senate.
that
One
I'm
of the
just like
things I do
sitting here
frequently is
and it's not
highlight
relevant,
dissidents in
just cut it out.
Iran and North Korea and China, in Venezuela, people are being tortured. Miriam Ibrahim in Sudan, who was sentenced to 100 lashes and then to be killed for the crime of being a Christian. And I repeatedly went to the Senate floor and shined a light on the government of Sudan. It was corrupt.
None of
It was
this
evil.
matters.
I practically begged Barack Obama, say her name. Ultimately,
I felt that way with the J6 prisoners.
look, yes. And
Probably do that.
look, there is power to speaking out. And ultimately, Obama never did say her name. He would not say her name. Ultimately, there was enough international condemnation. The government of Sudan let her go. And so she was not executed. And I met her.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys caught this, but Cruz literally so they have said so many times that we are not going to get involved in this conflict, that we're not going to support it, blah, 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 blah. He literally just admitted that we're not only supporting it, he literally said we're bombing them. Just pointing that out, right? Of course, they're going to kind of glaze over it. Let's see if they get back to it.
What other conspiracies do you not believe? Was 9/11 an inside job? I mean, like what?
So I've asked you the names of these people. I've
I
asked you
don't
how
know the
you
names
know
of
the
the Iranian
information.
hitmen. I know it because the U.S. military and the intelligence agencies have testified before Congress repeatedly.
And what did they
that
say?
Iran is trying to murder Donald Trump
How?
and has hired hitmen.
Okay, so we're just going to skip ahead to the last part. There's more of this, but I think there's really one more part that I just want to cover really quick because I think it's so important, and this is what we're going to end on. But let's just go over here.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump.
No,
You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out
I'm
if it was a
saying
good
you
idea to
don't
kill
believe-
General Soleimani, and you said it was
don't
bad.
believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really
we are
believe that,
carrying out military strikes today.
you said Israel was.
Right, with our help.
There it is again. There it is again. He said the quiet part out loud. With our help, we're carrying out military strikes today. Israel is with our help.
I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive
No,
capacity.
we're
at
not
all.
bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
This is high
Israel.
stakes. You're a senator.
So just like I said, we've already been involved in this conflict. That's what's going on. We are already very much involved, even though everybody's trying to pretend like we're not.
If you're saying the United States government is at war
we're-
with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay, we are not bombing them.
Oh, okay.
Israel is bombing them. And hey, why do you do the snide, oh, okay?
What do you mean? Because this is super high stakes stuff. This is a huge country that borders a lot of other important countries. A lot of the world's energy comes from there.
So
We
let
have.
me
you
ask
don't
you,
want
Tucker,
another disaster. You don't want to be
Tucker,
reckless.
the Ayatollah refers to Israel as the little.
All right, so we're just going to stop there. So I just think it's interesting. There's so many contradictory points, but that last one where he's like, well, why are you doing this? Like, why are you making this a big deal? And Tucker's like, because it is a big deal. You guys are the ones that are telling us that these people have the ability to build nuclear bombs. And now when we just kind of glaze over the fact that we're bombing them and we're supporting the bombing of them, you just kind of like shove it aside. We know that it's because you just spilled the beans that you weren't supposed to, but it's just interesting, this entire conversation, because again, it just comes back to the things that I've already said, which are we have no business being a part of this conflict. Absolutely none. And the only people that want to be a part of it are the ones that are benefiting from it financially. I truly believe that. And the ones that are blackmailed and compromised by the same government and the same people that are dragging us back into another conflict in the Middle East. That's just the reality. That's what I believe. And it's not about anti-Semitism or hating a certain group of people as whatever. It's literally America first. And I'm just going to end with this. America first means we take care of us first before we ever try to take care of anybody else. We absolutely do take care of other people, right? That's the difference between America first and America only. And I do believe in America first. I believe that we should help other people when we can. But we are in a state where we have to take care of our own. And I'm sick and tired of my tax dollars going over to a country to fight a war and fight a conflict that we have no business being a part of, and that I have no business being a part of, and I have no business funding. But that's what's happening. I literally work part of my day every single day to pay for a conflict overseas that I have nothing to do with. And so do you. And so does everybody else, every other American tax dollar or taxpayer. And that's what me and so many of these other people are talking about. That's the reason why we are, quote unquote, what these people say, obsessing over this, because it absolutely is in our interest to talk about it and to have this debate. But these people don't want to have the debate. They just want to keep on taking our money and putting it where we don't have any business putting it. And until that stops, I will always be critical. I will always call it out, because this is not the America First that I voted for. And I don't think it's the America First you voted for either. That being said, thank you guys so much for coming out, for listening to this episode. And I appreciate you guys. Please leave a comment. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel. I hope I add a little bit of insight that you may not have had before. And I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, guys.